wasp landed on the target. And there he was, right? I'm walking around a little bit in the crosshairs, and I thought, nah, I'd never be able to do this, right? And then he stopped, and I pressed the trigger, and it just absolutely cut him right in two so perfectly. Wow.
Hi there, and welcome to GunsMagazine.com presents the Guns Podcast US. I'm your host, Brent Wheat, and I'd like to thank you for joining us here on one of the world's biggest gun talk programs as we chat about the interesting stuff about in the world of shooting. Easy for me to say, right? Well, let me warn you, Roy Huntington's in love, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. First, let's pay the bills real quick with this word from our sponsor, EOTech.
Best known for their legendary holographic weapon sights, EOTech is built for speed, precision, and rock-solid reliability. That focus extends across their lineup, including high-performance rifle scopes for tactical use and hunting, plus durable pistol optics for professionals and enthusiasts alike. EOTech also delivers advanced night vision, thermal, and laser systems trusted by military and law enforcement worldwide. To explore the full lineup, visit eotechinc.com.
Well, Roy, I kind of teased it a second ago. You're in love, and I could tell when you were talking, your eyes were sparkling. There was animation in your voice. There was emotion, and you're in love with a gun. And we're going to talk about that today. It's the new Ruger carbon fiber, and I got to admit, I don't know much about it. I know very little about it. I've not touched one. I've certainly not shot one, but you have. You've made a video, and obviously you're pretty smitten. So I think before we get into talking about that gun, this really goes to a bigger question, which is semi-auto 22s just aren't that accurate, right? You know, if you want accuracy, you got to have that bolt gun, and you may shatter that preconceived notion as we get on and talk about this. So, Roy, okay, I've talked long enough. Tell me about your new object of love.
I will absolutely shatter that myth. And I was one of the myth guys, you know. I mean, dare I say this, 40 years ago when I had my first Anschutz bolt action 22, and it was unbelievable how accurate it was. It was like nothing I had ever shot before. It was stunning. I mean, a sub 1 inch gun at 100 yards in a 22 bolt action rifle.
Yeah.
And at the time, you and I were buying Ruger 1022s and Marlin Model 60s and stuff. And they were like, yeah, okay, bang, 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 and they kind of gave patterns, rather than groups. And
minute of barn door.
You could chase a running jackrabbit. And actually, even if you were shooting really, really well, you might still miss it.
Yeah.
And so they were really always not that satisfying for me. And I owned a few, but they just, as now I'm trying to remember who said it, but he said only an accurate rifle is interesting. And
Colonel Townsend Whelan.
Townsend Whelan, that's right. And he's right, So over the years, I have chased accurate rifles of all kinds, but my sort of personal favorite have always ended up being 22s. That's what I like to shoot. They're affordable, they're fun, they don't intrude on the neighbors here. And so I have had a litany of Anschutz rifles and, early DWM guns and, other weirdo European ones and stuff like that. And they've all been great fun to shoot. CZs, bolt actions. But I always kept thinking back to that original 1022. Well, about, 30 years ago, I took a 1022 and I bought oh my gosh, carbon fiber wrapped barrel.
Wow.
That was unheard of.
Yeah.
And and it was like $200 that long ago. I don't know, what's that, $700 or $800 now?
Yeah.
And I bought one of the original drop-in action kits for a 1022. So you actually had to take it apart and put the parts in. It wasn't just like the module like you can get nowadays. And then I dropped it in. Hogue had a drop-in synthetic rubber stock. And I looked at it and I went, well, that looks pretty good. So I put a scope on it, like a cheap 4-power, nothing, scope. And I shot it and I went, wait now, this is different, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because at 50 yards, I was getting like 1-inch groups really, really easy. And I didn't know what to do. I mean, I just had my whole world was shattered with by this. And, of course, though, anybody who's a 22 shooter knows that things have only improved since then, and I got this gun not too long ago from Ruger, and it's the 1022 carbon fiber. It's got a really cool carbon fiber stock on it. I think it weighs like total less than 4 pounds for the whole gun. It's feathery. Yeah. Have you ever gone to pick up like a heavy glass beer mug and only it was plastic?
Yeah.
Right? So you go, and your hand like a whoop, goes up like that because you were braced for the heavy. Well, I first picked this gun up. I did the same thing. I went, whoop. It was so light. And, so it's a stainless steel, high quality match barrel. It's got a carbon fiber sleeve which tensions it. It's got match everything. A custom trigger, 2 2.25 pound trigger, crisp like you can't believe. It'll bring a tear to your eye, and it's threaded, of course, for suppressor. Or as Ruger calls them, muzzle accessory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it comes with a Picatinny rail on it. And so I went ahead and I bolted a scope on this. I have enough sense now to know that if you have a gun that can shoot, you should put a good scope on it.
Yeah.
And I put somebody's, I think it was German Precision Optics. I put one of their scopes on it, and I was initially getting it sighted in, so I sighted in at 25 yards, and I shot 5 shots, and there was only one hole in the target, and I went, "Whoa, something's wrong here," right?
Yeah.
And so you look and tighten there, make sure everything's all right, and I shot again, and I know for a fact I was shooting on the target correctly, and then it dawned on me that those all were going in the same hole.
Wow.
Like not an elongated hole or a ragged hole or anything, but it looked like 122 bullet hole, right?
Wow.
Now, yeah, okay. There are other 22s that could probably come pretty close to that, but so then I pushed it out to 50 yards, and I shot several kinds of ammunition. And what I found was with CCI subsonic ammunition, so it's 1,050 feet per second. It was giving me pretty much ragged one-hole groups at 50 yards.
Wow.
And that's as good or better than my best Anschutz rifle that I have. My best pre-war German 22. I mean, you name it. It was absolutely stunning. And it reminded me of what Townsend Whelan said, is that this is interesting. I mean, I've got they're like 1-inch little spinners for 22 targets at 100 yards.
Yeah.
And once I got the elevation right, because the subsonic will drop about 5 inches or so. I mean, it was just like blink, 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 and they would go bink, 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 bink. Well, I'm sorry, man, that is just amazing to me. So I think the point of all this, though, is that I built a gun that you put on the cover of Guns magazine.
Yeah.
And we use mostly Powder River precision parts and then aftermarket stock and a custom barrel and and it was a beautiful gun. It shot just like this, right? But you can't build a gun like that for less than $1,500 to $2,000.
Yeah.
And so, because people do that with custom 1911s, they say, I've got this old beater 1911. I would like to have it customized. And I always say, well, unless you just want to do it for fun. I mean, if you're interested in getting like a really good 1911 that shoots really well and works really well, you should just go buy one,
Yeah.
that's already done correctly. But if you want to have fun, then do that. So you could do that with your broken, old, rusty 1022. You could use the hollow aluminum receiver, and because you'll replace everything else on the gun.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's like reminds me of the guy that says, "This is my great grandfather's hatchet. Now it's 150 years old, Now, I've put a new handle on it 2 or 3 times, and I've put a new head on it 2 or 3 times, but it's my grandfather's hatchet, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you would end up with your 1022. So do that if you want to. There's nothing wrong with that. It's fun to do. But really, this carbon fiber 1022, the MSRP is like $650.
That's amazing.
I made a video on it. Go to the FMG Publications YouTube channel, click in the shorts. You'll see the video on it. People there already said they went out and bought them after they saw the video, and they said, I just got mine for $500.
Wow.
And it's like, I'm sorry. Just the action group would cost that much, if you went and bought it. And then that was the first day or two, and then they've already come back and said, holy cow, I will say that what Roy said in this video is exactly right.
No kidding.
Yeah, I got mine. It's scary good. So I'm going to have to do a follow-up and push this out to 100 or more just to let people know. So
what do you think their target market is for like 22 PRS competitors, or where do you think they're going with this? Because I mean, that seems like a world beater there with the price, the accuracy. You just think they're just trying to build the best rifle they can.
Yeah, I mean, it's like interestingly enough, I heard a lot of the commenters were squirrel hunters.
Yeah.
And they said they love the fact that it's super accurate, because they've tended not to use a semi-auto because of that.
Right.
Right. And so they love the fact it's super accurate. They love the fact it's light. They love the fact it's already got a rail mounted on it that they could put an optic on. They love the fact that you can put your suppressor on it, because these hardcore squirrel hunters, they all that's how they're set up. Right.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of squirrel hunters, a lot of weekend competition people, because this just raises the bar.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're used to shooting, 3/4 of an inch at 50 yards in your weekend match, well, now suddenly you're shooting one whole ragged groups. I mean, and something to think about a high quality scope. It's like it would, if you're shooting 100 yards with this rifle, it would not be inappropriate to put like a 20 power scope on it.
Yeah.
Because with that, you're not just aiming at the center of the target. You're actually aiming at a point on the target.
Yeah.
Right? And actually, speaking of that, because I forgot this till just now, I had a target set up at about 30 yards, and I was still kind of getting it zeroed in where I wanted it and stuff, but it was hitting correctly, and a wasp landed on the target. and there he was, right? I'm walking around a little bit in the crosshairs, and I thought, nah, I'd never be able to do this, right? So I kind of chased him around with the crosshairs for a little while, and then he stopped, and I pressed the trigger, and it just absolutely cut him right in two so perfectly. Wow. I know. It's the first time I've ever done that before.
That's amazing.
Somebody said in the comments too, they said, another nail puller that I can make an excuse to buy, or nail pounder. Right.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a good idea. Because I absolutely don't know what happens if you pound like a 10 penny nail in a piece of wood. If you hit it with a 22, I don't know what's going to happen. Does it drive it in a little ways? Does it just...
And let me guess what exactly your next video is going to be.
We are definitely going to find out. Yeah.
That's fun. Well, I'm thinking, imagine, I've been having this a lot lately. Imagine the time traveler Roy goes back to Roy of 25 years ago and goes, this is a factory gun for the equivalent of, a not really expensive semi-auto, and it's one whole group. What would you have said to that?
I wouldn't have believed it. I mean, it's like, hey, Roy, it's Roy. Hey, how you doing? It's surprising to see you. Yeah, you must be from the future, like Spock in the movie, right, where he meets himself.
Good Lord, you're looking old.
I know, you're looking old. I mean, I lived through those days, and remember those days 40 years ago, if your bolt action hunting rifle 30-06 shot a 2-inch group at 100 yards, you were thrilled to death.
Yeah.
Like, man, old Betsy's really accurate,
Yeah.
And then, I remember shooting inexpensive bolt action Remington 22. You put a cheap. I think part of the problem in retrospect was they had those terrible 7/8 diameter 4-power fuzzy blurry scopes that we used to put on these guns.
Hey, they cost at least $5. Okay.
Yeah, or they were free when you bought the gun, right?
Yeah.
I think in retrospect that was probably some of the problems, because I put good scopes on some of those guns nowadays and they actually shoot pretty good.
Yeah.
Of course they had terrible triggers too, but. I saw that when I built that first 1022, and I thought, this is really interesting. I'm not sure where this is going to go, but the traditionalists, the real target shooters, were still using bolt guns. So there was the fringe people started doing this to these 1022s, and Volkwartsen came out, of course, revolutionized everything.
Yeah.
And I think part of what Ruger's doing now is that they're acknowledging the fact that if a company like Volkwartsen can make basically a 1022 clone that will shoot a ragged one-hole group at 50 yards, well, then Ruger was probably going, okay, engineers, if they can do it, why can't we?
Yeah.
So they are, and they've got a few other models out right now. So if you're in the market, you're thinking about it, maybe your kid is grown up past the single shot 22 stage. I would say don't handcuff them with a poor quality gun. Because if you get them something like this, they'll have that the rest of their life. And I mean, you can't get better than basically a one ragged hole group at 50 yards.
That's pretty amazing. And, this kind of leans into that thing we've talked about before, that we're living in the golden age right now.
Oh, I know.
Guns across the board, ammunition across the board are better than they used to be. And kind of talk about that fact, but explain how the manufacturing side, because we're blessed to have spent a lot of time in different gun factories, just explain to the average shooter how things have changed so significantly, and why guns today are so much better than what they used to be. We tend to think of, well, back then they were handcrafted and you might get a really good one or you might get a really crappy one, but now across the board they're good. So talk about why that is.
Well, I think, because remember, 50 years ago, it was pretty much all conventional machining equipment. There were lathes and milling machines, and they had jigs and fixtures and people who know how to do things and stuff. But every part had to be within a certain specification range, and that's why most of them needed hand fitting afterwards. And so, even the early days of assembling a Ruger standard auto pistol, there was still handwork there. You dropped everything together and then you had to kind of, massage it into fitting correctly. And you couldn't necessarily pull a hammer out of this gun and put it in this gun. And so nowadays, with the precision of CNC and EDM machining and that kind of stuff, boy, I'll tell you, if you want this machine to crank out 10,000 parts, they're all exactly alike.
Yeah.
And so I think the engineers now are singing because they can imaginate something, and now it's not only reproducible once, it's reproducible 10,000 times. With rare exceptions. So that's why which then now drives the price down, because you don't have that hand fitting in it. You're able to sell more product. Everything is more efficient. They're using synthetics that they weren't able to use before, that weren't even invented.
Yeah.
So it really is the good old days. I mean, I love old guns too, but I have to say that if someone said you can have this old Ruger 1022 to relive your youth, or you could have this new carbon fiber 1022. Yeah. It's like, gee, guess what I would pick?
Yeah, no comparison.
Yeah.
Oh, well, good stuff. And it's fun to hear the enthusiasm in your voice. It's by virtue of what we do. Sometimes we get a little jaded in it, but what's really cool, you've had that experience many times, but you just relived it, of when you get a gun that you thought, okay, this is interesting. I'll give it a shot. I'm sure it's okay. And then you're like, Wow. Yeah. I've had my preconceived notions shattered.
Yeah. Well, you know what I will equate it to, for the computer geeks out there in the world? I lived through the beginning of computers, and so do you. So, in 81, I think I bought an Apple IIc, it was called.
Yep.
I mean, it was like $2,500. I don't know what that is now. $10,000. I mortgaged my whole entire self to buy this. A dot matrix printer.
Yeah.
100 and what was it?
128 gig.
28K.
Yeah.
Meg. Yeah. 128 meg. No, 128K.
K. Yeah. Probably.
Yeah. 120. Yeah. And anyway, yeah, because it had 40K discs.
Yeah.
But I remember when I got it, I thought, this is not what I want a computer to do. It was not what I was imagining. You know, it was like Star Trek. Star Trek, you wanted a computer. Tell me what the, it'd be like your Alexa machine. Alexa, tell me what's this, That's what I wanted a computer to do, to be able to do things seamlessly and not having me have to write, programming for it, code. And so as time went by and generations of computers got a little better and a little better and a little better, it was like close, but not quite. It was like, the camera's not quite good enough. The hard drive isn't really as fast as I was hoping. Whereas nowadays, if you go buy a $500 laptop, I mean, you could fly to the moon if you needed to with its computing power. I mean, it's seamless. They have great audio. They have great optics. They have great scanning ability. I mean, everything is across the board. Yeah. It's everything that anyone ever imagined they wish a computer could do does. Well, guess what? A gun like this is that.
Yeah.
I mean, because, when I picked up that first semi-auto 22 rifle and you shoot it, it's like, oh man, the sights are kind of crappy, the trigger's terrible, the stock doesn't really fit, the barrel's no good, and then as these generations have come and gone, they're like, oh, this one's a lot better. But I have to say, this one here, I wouldn't change a darn thing on it. I mean, it is truly turnkey out of the box. So
it gets the Roy Huntington seal of approval.
It has the Roy Huntington seal of approval. So, all right, go check it out, though. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it.
Well, cool. Well, when you suggested this as a topic, and before we got started, Roy said, "You'll just kind of bring it up and then pitch it to me," and that's exactly what happened. It'll be interesting to see while I'm editing. I think this is mostly Roy talking, but it was fun to listen to him, not just talk about it, but how exciting it was for him. And here's a guy that's been shooting, 50 some years, Roy?
60 years.
Yeah.
60 years.
So shooting, as I often say, gun and fun are one letter apart. And it's pretty cool to see a veteran shooter still getting pretty enthused and excited.
It's fun. I mean, if you're not having fun, you need to try something different.
Exactly.
And I appreciate you letting me run with this, because it was a fun thing, and I really wanted to share this with people. And because you and I know I speak for you, it's like the people who watch the videos and listen to the podcast, they're like extended family.
Yeah.
And if I could get 50 of these people here in my backyard, we would have had this same conversation. Because we'd all be going, no, really, look at this. Hey, you want to shoot it? We would have had fun. So,
and that's a perfect lead into comments. We like to hear, if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment down below. We like to hear your experience. Especially Roy said that you actually had a couple of people say you bought them. Or tell you that they bought them after you did your video on it. So we'd like to hear if you've got experience with them, or just your experience with your old semi-auto or 1022. Or I love hearing reminiscence about, I had this crappy bolt action Marlin whatever, and I went on my first squirrel hunt, and I still remember that. I love seeing that and hearing that kind of stuff. So leave us a comment on YouTube, or you can reach out, editor@gunspodcast.us, and we surely want to hear what you guys have to say about all this. So before we go, real quick, here's a word from our sponsor, EOTech.
To explore the full lineup, visit eotechinc.com.
Well, before we go, of course, I would like to remind you, please stop by gunsmagazine.com. Check out all your favorite gun writers there, including myself and Roy. Roy used to write a lot of our cover stories for the print issue of Guns Magazine. So that stuff's all still there, and we've got new stuff that still comes out. Plus, you can sign up for our daily newsletters. Get all of our great gun goodness delivered right to your email inbox. And before we go, I would like to remind you that check out gunspodcast.us for all of our merch. The official Roy Huntington Guns Podcast mug, use sweatshirts, t-shirts, all kinds of stuff. Heck, we might even have golf clubs by the time you get check it out. But check out Guns Podcast US while you're online visiting gunsmagazine.com. So anyway, it's been fun talking to Roy about his new love. And on behalf of my co-host, Roy Huntington, I am Guns Podcast host. Couldn't even think of what my own term was. I'm the host of Guns Podcast US, and I would like to remind you yet again, as we always say, now it's time to get out there and get shooting.